I've always had a deep passion for hunting, something I inherited from my father, who used to take me out on trips every Saturday. For this trip, I brought along 2 Remington Model 798 sniper rifles, although I carried his until we reached the spot where I usually find game. I considered taking him up to the deer hunting tower hidden deeper in the woods, but I felt that might be too much for his first experience. So we settled in an open area where I thought he'd have an easier time. Peter had already learned some basic gun safety, so I wasn't throwing him into this without any knowledge. Still, I planned to keep things simple for his first trip and maybe try more advanced techniques as he gained more experience in future outings. There was a lot of waiting that day, more than usual in that spot. I could tell Peter was getting bored. He kept yawning and sighing, and it made me worry that he'd lose interest in hunting. So, to keep things interesting, I suggested we move to a new spot, which seemed to perk him up a bit. We were only a few steps into the walk when I heard footsteps. I stopped Peter, gesturing for him to raise his rifle. But as soon as I saw a head peeking out from behind a tree in the distance, I quickly lowered his gun, relieved that he hadn't fired. I waved a little apology to the stranger, who immediately disappeared behind the tree. I wasn't sure if he was another hunter, but there was something unsettling about his face, even from a distance. It didn't quite look right, though I couldn't pinpoint exactly why. Seeing anyone this deep into the woods was unusual, and this guy didn't seem like a typical hunter. To play it safe, I decided we should head in the opposite direction. As we walked, Peter started asking me about the man, wondering who he was. I kept my response vague, saying I didn't know and didn't think it was a good idea to go back and find out. After a while, Peter complained he was hungry, so we stopped for a quick snack. I was feeling frustrated that we hadn't seen any game yet, but as we ate, I heard footsteps again, this time closer. Peter must have heard it too, because he immediately picked up his rifle and aimed in that direction. My stomach dropped when I saw the same man from earlier peering out at us from behind another tree. I lowered Peter's gun again, noticing that he was starting to look uncomfortable. I told him to stay put, deciding to walk over to the man and confront him. But halfway there, I had a sudden realization. What was I doing, leaving my son alone in the middle of the woods? I turned back, quickly rejoining Peter and telling him it was time to head out. If I was feeling like we were being stalked, I didn't want to stay in the woods any longer. We walked calmly but steadily toward the road. I kept listening, expecting to hear a crunch of leaves or a snap of a twig behind us. Sure enough, I heard it. I nudged Peter forward and turned around, furious, to confront the man who was once again peering at us from behind a tree. I marched toward him, gun in hand, but as I got within about 30 feet of the tree, he slipped out of sight again, and then I heard a loud thud, like something heavy had fallen to the ground. I crept up to the tree, heart pounding, my gun loaded and ready. But I didn't shout. I didn't even say a word. Slowly, I approached the tree, and when I finally looked around, it was as though everything around me went silent. There on the ground in front of me was a severed human head lying face down in the dirt. There was no body, just the head. I didn't bother looking around or figuring out who had left it there. I just spun around and sprinted back to Peter, telling him to run. We made it back to our car within minutes, and I kept a sharp lookout all the way home, making sure we weren't followed. That night, I barely slept, keeping watch for any signs of danger to protect my family. The following day, I learned from my wife that 2 local hunters had recently gone missing. That's when I decided to call the police and report what I'd seen, hoping it might help their investigation. For months after that, I was cautious about going back into the woods, especially with Peter. To this day, I can't fathom how this man managed to kill 2 armed hunters, if they were the ones who had gone missing. But after some time, we gradually returned to hunting together, though that experience has never left me.